Hey, this is Digital Byte Computing. We're talking about what a system engineer does. They do a lot of stuff, they're involved in a lot of different things, and there's also little subsets of what a system engineer does. So we're going to go through that today. Hey, my name is Emilio and I work in IT, and today we're going to talk about what does a systems engineer do. You've heard the term, maybe, systems engineer, systems administrator. Those terms can be used interchangeably. However, we're going to focus on a systems engineer, which is, in my opinion, just a little bit step higher than a systems administrator. But in a nutshell, a systems engineer is somebody who's not only responsible for the day-to-day administration and management of a system of multiple storage and servers and all that sort of nature, but he also has a hand in the design, in the development, strategy of what a system is sort of going to look like. So, system engineer can be broken down also into there can be guys that are also network guys that are under the banner of system engineer. You've got storage engineers that can also fall under the banner of a system engineer. But in a nutshell, we're talking about people who look after servers, right? So physical servers that can be racked into data centers, patching, cabling, doing all that sort of stuff in a data center. People who are looking after virtualization environments, so building VMs, managing virtual machines, working with tools such as VMware and Citrix and that sort of thing. People who look after a Windows environment, Microsoft environment. So essentially a Microsoft shop would be things like Microsoft AD, Active Directory, which is a tool that is used for managing users and resetting passwords for user accounts, for computers, for servers, for permissions, for creating distribution groups for your emails, things of that nature. You've got tools such as Microsoft Exchange, which is their mail system from Microsoft. You've got certificate authorities, you've got DNS, domain controllers, DHCP. There's a whole range of different Microsoft related tools that a system engineer would generally work on for a Microsoft suite. They can also have involvement in a Linux environment, in the Mac environment, dealing with the Mac server fleet and the Mac server software as well. So there's a lot of Mac management software, Linux, things like CentOS, Red Hat, Ubuntu, those sort of suites. They could be responsible for general patching of all of the infrastructure as well. So making sure that everything is patched up to date, setting the schedules, setting the strategy of how they want to be patching as well. We're looking at storage. System engineer, as I said before, a storage engineer can also be what's called a system engineer as well. You can bunch those two together. But people who look after storage solutions, so such as a SAN, a NAS, so a storage area network, which is essentially a big rack full of disks. It doesn't have to be big, you can have smaller ones, but instead of having a server with some drives in it, which is nice, a lot of companies will have a dedicated system just for disks. So they have multiple disks in there, set up in groups, into RAID groups, into different pools, and then be able to share that with the servers and with the virtual infrastructure to be able to provide storage solutions and storage capacity. The storage person or a system engineer person that works with storage also could look after the backups and the disaster recovery sort of tools. So backups using backup tools to back up to disk, to back up to tape, managing schedules, backing up databases, backing up virtual machines, snapshots, file level backups, all to certain schedules, making sure that the schedules run overnight. In the morning, if backups have failed, diagnosing why they failed, re-kicking them off. You've also got disaster recovery, which would be one step up from backups. If you have a different data center, for example, a system engineer could be responsible for replicating all of the data from one site to the next, and making sure that the SAN, if we're talking about storage, that the SAN is backed up and replicated over to a alternate site. A hand within the disaster recovery plan. So, a lot of companies will do yearly or every 6 months will actually do a disaster recovery test where they do testing of, let's simulate a disaster. Let's simulate our servers have become unavailable or the network's been cut. What do we do? So they could have a hand in developing a plan. What are the steps that they're going to follow to make sure that the system is recoverable from a disaster and can be all up and running. A system engineer will also have a part in working in a data center. This really depends on the size of the business, but some businesses will have a server room, a comms room set up somewhere in their building perhaps, where it's essentially a room with just a whole bunch of servers and maybe a SAN and some network devices and all these cables and all that sort of stuff. A system engineer will be responsible for looking after all of that equipment, for racking it, for putting new equipment in, for cabling it all up, for doing all of the back-end infrastructure work to make all that work. They could be working closely with your network engineers on their switches and on the routers, or a system engineer could also be the network guy as well and have to have an understanding of not only the system components but also the network components as well. Larger companies may have a off-site data center, so they may have found that it's cheaper and more economical to not have the data center or the server room in-house, because a server room will have to be cooled. Sometimes there's regulations to have it raised off the floor, so they can have all the cabling underneath it, and in terms of flooding and things of that nature. So they may choose to have it off-site at a different data center. And it's the job of a system engineer to make sure that is up and running, make sure that it's maintained, that it's looking spick and span, and that when they upgrade systems that they can go ahead on site and do all the cabling, organizing outages with the business, change control, and a whole range of other things. So the more skills that a systems engineer has, the better for them. The better for them in their career and their long-term development as a IT professional. You can also have different levels of system engineers, level 1, 2, and 3, depending on their skill set. You can have senior system engineers, and then even you could have people which would be called architects, which could be one step higher than a system engineer, which is essentially they're now responsible for the architectural design of an environment and setting up things of that nature. So the skill set is very varied. Some companies may have a system engineer that just looks after VMware, which is a virtualization suite. Other guys could be looking after just the servers, just the physical servers. Other guys could be looking after storage. Other guys could be looking after backups, Active Directory, all these different tools. So if you found that video helpful, please like it and subscribe to my channel, Digital by Computing, just on the button there for more videos.